Hi, everybody. It's Miss Hilton. So, we have just watched a video about setting and why the setting is important to a story, how the setting impacts the characters, all kinds of things about the setting. So, what is going to happen here is I am going to take myself off the screen and I'm going to hit this button right here that says read aloud. And the story will be read aloud to you. I was trying to read it and upload it, but my cat kept being crazy. So there were so many bloopers in that video. I'm just going to have it read aloud to you. And I kept making mistakes. So pay close attention to this story. Please think about the characters, the setting, which is where the story takes place and when the story takes place. It all ties together and it all impacts the main events of the story. So, enjoy this story called The Buried Moon.
The Buried Moon by Angela McAllister, The Cordo Group. Published October 1st, 2019. Long ago, wicked things haunted the watery marshlands. On dark nights, eerie lanterns would lure travelers away from the paths, where slithering creatures and dangerous bogs and murky pools waited to drag them to a gruesome fate. The moon heard tales of these terrors and wished to know if they were true. So, she wrapped herself in a black cloak, pulled the hood over her head, and stepped down to the marshland. Cautiously, the moon crept through the marsh. At the edge of a slimy pool her foot slipped. She reached out for a branch to save herself from falling, but, to her horror, woody fingers twined around her wrists and gripped her tight. She was trapped. The moon tugged and twisted, but could not free herself. Then a frightened voice whimpered in the darkness. A man had strayed from the path and was squelching through the bog, heading for a lantern light he hoped was a sign of safety. Only the moon heard the slobbering creatures waiting to grab him. At once, she shook the hood from her shining hair, casting bright moonbeams across the marsh, and the crawling terrors shrieked and squirmed back into the bog. The man cried with joy at seeing the path once more. He hurried back to safety with little more than a glance over his shoulder at the light that had saved him. Now the moon was alone without any hope of help. She sank to her knees and the hood fell over her head once more. But she had given herself away. As soon as it was dark again, the wicked creatures emerged from the bog and clamored around her, screeching and plucking at her with bony fingers. They hated the moon's light. After a squabble, they decided to bury her deep in the pool at the foot of the tree and roll a huge stone on top of her. Intending to return to gloat, they left a ghostly lantern to mark the place. Days passed and the moon did not appear in the sky. The people who lived by the marsh grew fearful and the creatures of the bog became bold, creeping up to their houses at night to claw at the windows. Nobody could guess what had happened to the moon, until, one evening, a traveler at an inn told his story. "I believe I saw her," he said. "I was lost in the marsh on a dark night when a light, soft as a moonbeam, showed me the path and saved me from certain death." When the men of the marshland heard this, they hurried to the wise woman of the village to ask her advice. The wise woman consulted her brew pot. "Tonight, you must go to the marsh," she said. "Look for a coffin, a cross and a candle. There you may find the moon. But first, put stones in your mouths, for you mustn't speak a word until you are safe home again." The men waited for dusk and then did as she said. They picked their way nervously around the bogs until they found the huge stone, rising from the water like a coffin. Looking up, they saw two crossed branches and the ghostly lantern, flickering like a candle. Without a word, they lifted the stone and, to their relief, the marsh was flooded with light. The grateful moon leapt out of the water, back into the sky. Ever since that night, the moon has shone more brightly for the people of the marshland than anyone else.